In Irish, in my language, Tír na nÓg literally means the land of the ever young, and is the Irish version of Atlantis. There's a very, very old myth in Ireland that an island sank in the Atlantic that contained an extraordinary civilization. And we have two names for it in Irish. Sometimes we call it Tír Fáthán, which means literally the land under the waves. And sometimes we call it Tír na nÓg, which means the land of the ever young. And there are literally thousands of Irish stories about that. So I live 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, in northern Sonoma County, about 10 miles outside of Healdsburg. And the last 5 miles is a dirt track into the middle of the woods and the mountains. And so my nearest neighbours are coyotes and wild pigs and turkeys and bobcats and occasionally a mountain lion. And I'm surrounded by madronas and manzanita and redwood and scrub oak. And the only noise I hear, occasionally at 39,000 feet, I'll hear a jet plane coming out of San Francisco or going into San Francisco. And for the rest of the time, all I hear is Pena Creek. Pena Creek is literally 500 feet below me, and my house is built right on a bluff, on a cliff. There are cliffs on 3 sides of it. So that's the only noise I have for 4 days in a week. And that's the second field in which I harvest. And my teacher there is a very, very, very old woman. She's called Gaia, and she's 4.5 billion years of age. And she's the best teacher I've ever come across, nature. And she speaks really, really quietly. So you have to be really silent in order to hear what she has to say. But she has extraordinary things to reveal when we have the courage to stay silent. And so everything that's in these 3 books, and particularly in this last one, which just came out in October 2008, is the harvest from those 2 sources. I always like to define my terminology before I begin, so that you know what I mean by what I'm saying. Because I believe that a lot of the difficulties we experience is that we put limitations on ourselves by the ways in which we define our terminology. So when I talk about knowledge, by knowledge I mean information that comes from the outside of us to the inside of us. So if you tell me, for instance, that it's now 7:45, that's information I didn't have before you told me. So that's information you gave me, you filled up the empty container. But wisdom is very, very different. Wisdom is information that comes from the inside out. And that is the true meaning of education. The Latin term educare literally means to lead out from inside of. Knowledge is important, but it is not vitally important. Much more important is wisdom. And wisdom comes from the inside out. We have to learn techniques for revealing to ourselves, from ourselves, the great innate wisdom of which all of us, in which all of us are embedded. So it's as if the source itself, with a capital S, source I mean the ineffable origin about which we can say nothing. We can experience it, but we cannot articulate it. There is indeed an aspect of God that we can speak about, and that's the immanence of God. That's God as she articulates herself through her manifest worlds. So there's a great statement in the Tao Te Ching, the scriptures of Taoism, that says, those who know don't say, and those who say don't know. Because if you really experience God, it is such utterly ineffable an experience that there is nothing you can say about it. And anything you attempt to say about it will cheapen the experience. So people who say a lot about God mostly don't experience. So that's the difference between the mystics and the theologians. The theologians can tell you what God had for breakfast, but they've never met her. The mystics have an intimate experience of God, but they won't speak about her. The experience itself is enough.